Hello, I'm Manavultus, and today I will be asking the question, is this the end of the Republican Party? Okay, so today we're going to talk a little bit about politics, specifically regarding the Republican Party and some things that occurred recently with it. Okay, so as I am recording this, it is Thursday, the last day of the Republican National Convention. I looked at the logo and apparently it was copyrighted, so I decided to put a artist's impression up there, made by an artist that I know very well and who will go unnamed at the moment. But anyway, as expected, this convention is mainly an affirmation of Donald Trump becoming the next nominee for the Republican Party. And that just seems to be what is destined to come down, since he won the primary elections after all. So the party is going to probably choose him, almost certainly. And this is pretty big, I think, in the things that are happening. But another major event that occurred, for me at least, is that a lot of protesters showed up, of course. A lot of them were Democrats who didn't like the Republican Party, some of them socialists even. And there were also Never Trumpers, and in the convention itself were a lot of people who opposed Donald Trump, etc. And they tried to get a vote, or at least to be addressed on their grievances on Donald Trump, but they were unsuccessful in that attempt. Now, I personally find the Never Trump movement to be a little bit interesting in the sense that it really comes from a number of different places. A lot of people think that Trump just isn't the candidate that the Republicans were looking for, and they prefer candidates that, in their opinion, are more principled or care more about the Constitution, or are more interested in protecting their rights and having a free market economy and less surveillance and stuff like that. Others are from the Democratic side, who believe that Donald Trump is a racist, which isn't really it's not a verifiable claim, really. Calling somebody racist is it's always very difficult to prove that someone is a racist. But anyway, right now on the screen you should be seeing a meme that I found on the internet, and I think it accurately describes what Trump supporters look like to Never Trumpers, in the sense that ain't no brakes on the Trump train. A lot of people are so heavily supporting Trump that people just feel like they're politically being raped, in a sense, because they don't think it's okay. They don't like it. Now, overall, after listening to some of the speeches that I heard two main things. A lot of it was attacks on Hillary Clinton, because she is obviously going to be the counter nominee by the Democratic Party. But a lot of it, for lack of better terms, if you'll pardon me for using this word, it seems like a massive circle jerk on Donald Trump. These people, a lot of people, to be specific here, what I'm trying to say is that a lot of people who did not support Donald Trump earlier now support him, and it makes them look like huge hypocrites, and it just seems very absurd. It's surreal how much they are in love with Trump. Now, that's not saying that a lot of the people that have liked Trump from the start aren't like this too, because in some instances it's almost like a cult of personality with him. And that is rather disturbing, for me at least. But I got one massive sigh of relief from this sort of religious worship that was going on when Ted Cruz got up there, and instead of talking about Trump, he did go after Hillary, which is expected, but he, instead of talking about a specific person, decided to talk about the principles and the founding principles of the Republican Party. And I think that's something that's a little bit more appropriate for a party convention. But of course, a lot of people in the audience disagreed, and there began to be a lot of booing, and people were getting angry. And I heard afterwards that some people had to be restrained because they were so angry at Ted Cruz that they really wanted to attack him. But one reason that I think Ted Cruz didn't really openly support Trump other than to congratulate him on his victory was, of course, because of the attacks Trump put on Ted Cruz and how Trump repeatedly called Ted Cruz a liar. Of course, what exactly Ted Cruz lied about, the world may never know. But in any case, I think in that situation, Trump would have definitely been the bigger hypocrite if people had really pursued the topic a bit more in the media. But also, Trump attacked Ted Cruz's family verbally as well. And for all these reasons, it makes sense that Ted Cruz would not want to support Trump. If he did, it would make him look like a huge hypocrite. And instead of doing that, he just talked about the principles of the party and stuff like that, which is very good, I suppose. But of course, the nastiness of the crowd was not made better at all, because soon afterwards, Donald Trump himself came in while Ted Cruz was still talking and really stole the show, as Trump does, which is a little bit of a dick move, I think. But fair enough for him, I suppose. But the crowd was calmed down a little bit afterwards when Newt Gingrich got up and he tried to justify a little bit of Ted Cruz's speech, specifically where Ted Cruz asked people to vote for someone who would be in favor of the U.S. Constitution. And Newt Gingrich put the logical leap that since Hillary Clinton is less for the Constitution than Donald Trump, therefore Cruz was not directly but indirectly saying that people should vote for Trump. And I do have to agree with that assessment, that Donald Trump certainly would be a bit more respectful to the US Constitution than Hillary Clinton. But of course, how far that respect goes, I don't know. And I suppose I won't find out until perhaps Donald Trump makes it into office. But still, I have to say I'm not entirely too happy with the situation. By the way, nice portrait, Newt Gingrich. That's from his portrait as Speaker of the House, and I think it looks very nice, whoever made that. Compliments to the artist. So by now you are probably asking yourself a question, so what does this have to do with the downfall of the Republican Party? What does this have to do with any of this? And wait, I'm going to tell you right now. But before we get into this, let me just say that I still think Donald Trump would be a better candidate than Hillary Clinton, even though he, in my opinion, is not a good candidate, as people who would have watched some earlier videos of mine would know. I still probably would end up voting for him if the polls were close, in order to get for the Supreme Court, so that we get someone in there. So this, I suppose, gives away my political ideology, but fair enough. Everyone has their own opinion. I understand that. So what really makes me say that this spells doom to the Republican Party is the way that the convention reacted to Ted Cruz. People were angry, people were yelling, people were so angry, and Ted Cruz didn't even say anything bad about Donald Trump. He said things that would, I suppose, that most people there should probably agree with the party's position on various issues and the history of a party and opposition to Hillary Clinton. But nonetheless, people in the crowd were so angry at Ted Cruz that it's just a disgrace. It is disgraceful how those people reacted. They were like children that were unhappy because they didn't get what they wanted. It's like, okay, it's like a kid at a birthday party, okay? Never mind, let's leave that analogy for a minute. Just now I'm going to also talk about something else that happened at the same time. The media, okay? So I was watching this on Fox News, because I thought, well, why not? And immediately after Cruz's speech, they brought up some pundits to talk about what happened. And about half of them were genuinely upset at Ted Cruz's speech, saying, oh, he's so angry that he didn't win, and stuff like that. And one of them even said, how dare he, this is Trump's convention. And that really put the nail in the coffin for me, because I was just thinking right then, isn't this supposed to be the Republican convention and not the Trump convention? Is there a memo that the Republican Party didn't get on that? Because it really brought it all into focus, all this pro-Trump stuff. It's just too much. It's got to stop. People, I know it's okay to support a political candidate, but to the extent that if somebody who that candidate has personally insulted doesn't offer their glad support for that candidate, that you just lose it over it, then you've gone too far. You've lost track, you've lost sight of what your party is about, you've lost the principles that your party is based on, and you have instead turned this into a cult of personality. And let me add to that, people's loyalty shouldn't be to a specific politician or even to a specific party. It should be to the principles behind all this. It should be to the principles, and that is what Ted Cruz was saying, that you need to follow these principles and you need to vote based on the principles, and whether you vote Republican, Democrat, Independent, whichever party, it all depends on the principles that these leaders show, the principles that these parties are engaged with, not whether your grandparents were part of which party, or whether you really like a certain politician, or that he really speaks to you, he speaks what you're thinking. No, that's not what it's about. It's about principles. And this is why the Republican Party is basically dead to me now. It's dead to me. They have sold their principles for a cult of personality. They have done this, and you might say, well, maybe you're just overreacting. Maybe they haven't. Maybe you're just seeing something that isn't there. And I have to say, please do comment on this. I am interested in hearing your opinion on this. And if I see a lot of comments, I will make a follow-up video that will perhaps discuss this a bit more into depth, or address some criticism that you lay against me. I always like criticism. And if you agreed with anything I said, or even are interested in this sort of dialogue, being able to dialogue politically, please do comment. And if you dislike well, what I meant to say is please do like, but if you dislike, please do leave a comment as to what specifically made you dislike. Of course, if it was the quality of a video, in the sense that this is a little bit of a slideshow really more than an actual movie, then I can understand why you would be upset about that. But seriously, where are your expectations? It's just something I made on short notice real quick, didn't really matter. But thank you for watching. Comment, like, subscribe. See you all next time. I'm Anawiltus, over and out.